Hello, now in this video you're going to see 4 product managers answer 7 really common behavioral questions that you're very likely to face if you're interviewing at FAANG or any other big tech company. These product managers not only worked at Google, Meta and Amazon, but they ran PM interviews there, and they're now coaches on our platform. So you can use their answers to help you construct your own answers and to make sure you're really ready for those behavioral questions that you will face in your interviews. All right, let's go. Tell me about a time you solved a team conflict.
Yes, this is always a good one. Fundamentally, as a product manager, there have been many team conflicts or inter-team conflicts that I've needed to work on or be able to address. One particular situation that comes to mind was when I was working with a team and we were working on location products, and we had a designer and a team of engineers. In particular, one meeting, we were doing an engineering review of the designs and what we were going to be working on in the next sprint. And one of the engineers said, it would be very hard to implement the rounded corners that the designer had put into their designs. The designer did not take kindly to this at all. He had actually felt fed up. He slammed his laptop on the table and then said, I designed things for a reason, and it should be designed as this, and walk out. So clearly the problem here is that there's a short-term and long-term problem as I saw it. Short-term, we need to get through the sprint. We need to come to a resolution, and whether the designer or the engineer or some compromise needed to be met. And then long-term, I've seen this in the past on other teams, but I was concerned about the ability for design and engineering to work directly together, because if I have to come in and help resolve or mitigate every single conflict, this will really hurt the engineering velocity. I also, understand both parties, right? Design does really spend a lot of time to implement and think about how things should be laid out. But engineering does have a really great understanding of how long something will take to implement. And oftentimes they may see a hurt in their productivity or velocity because of changes that may not have a strong impact on the UX, but would take a long time to implement. And secondly, it may show that there's simply a disconnect between understanding why a decision was made on the design front and why it's important for engineering to adhere to that and solve it. So thinking through the solution, I wanted to understand both sides a little bit better and come to a compromise to solve the short-term and long-term. I met with each one individually and got a better understanding, along with helping them understand the other person's side of view. So helping design understand a little bit more about the cost from engineering, and then engineering understand the painstaking amount of effort that design does really go through this to solve this problem. I was able to bring the team back together, and on short term, we came up with a compromise. So once we had a better understanding of actually how much this change would cost the engineering team and the other areas it would hurt us, in addition to the actual impact that these rounded corners versus square corners would have, we were able to come to a compromise of it was kind of like a pseudo-rounded corner, for lack of a better word, but it took about half as much time to implement. But long term, what we set basis and cadence here is that creating a more consistent channel for engineering to both give their feedback to design and also to have design for certain changes, understand where some of their changes may be causing a lot of engineering effort, and be able to add either additional justifications or offer some alternatives potentially for the team. The impact of this was, one, we were able to finish the sprint on time. Alternatively, these two warring bodies would have caused potential issues for the entire team. But long term, what it meant is that for when we were going through our engineering reviews, design and engineering were working more consistently together. Engineering felt more bought in, and design also had a little bit more empathy for some of their design choices and how that would come about. And the lessons from this was, one is in terms of the PM, product manager is oftentimes the glue or the interpreter between different parts of the team. But if you are if you're always the interpreter, you'll create a bottleneck around yourself, because everything now has to pass through you. So it's important to really invest in helping the team work with a shared lexicon, with a shared framework, a shared way of how we operate and communicate impact and effort, and that there's a good way for them to work together.
Okay, thanks, Damien. I wanted to ask, Is there anything you do now when you join a new team as a PM to avoid these type of conflicts?
Yeah, so one of the takeaways from this is had we had some of this shared lexicon and understanding to start with, that maybe it wouldn't have happened in the first place. So now when I go on to teams, I really, if it's an existing team, I really want to understand how they're communicating already and if there are gaps in between certain functions or certain teams. I start with oftentimes there's helping either engineering, giving engineering more context about design or some of the user decisions that are being made so that they understand why certain choices are being made. And then also having design work more closely with engineering to both help them understand a little bit more of the process and kind of why certain decisions are being made and kind of the impact of that. So I now try and start and get the team in a better place where these types of communications can happen naturally and that level of understanding. So it doesn't explode into kind of a large confrontation. It can be resolved in terms of usually a few additional questions or some additional explanation because everyone understands that they may be looking at the exact same thing very, very differently. But when we have a shared way of discussing this and talking about this, it can help go through these much quicker and much faster.
Cool, great answer, thanks. With Tell Me About a Time questions, we always recommend to structure your answer using the SIPSIL framework: situation, problem, impact, solution, and lessons. Damien employed this to good effect here. He also inserted some strong storytelling moments, for example when he described his colleagues slamming their laptop down. This sort of thing can help make your story more memorable for the interviewer. Questions about conflict are common at most companies, and here the final part of the SIPSIL framework is probably the most important. You'll want to show that you've learned very applicable lessons from the specific example you give, and that those lessons will help you when dealing with conflict in the future.
Tell me about a time you demonstrated product leadership.
Great question. So on one of my previous teams, I was working on a messaging product. And that messaging product was having extreme reliability issues. That's to say, messages just weren't sending, which is a pretty important feature of a messaging product. They would either get lost or go to the wrong place. And the issue was that the core engine that was powering communication was buggy. It had been brought in through an acquisition, and that code hadn't really been properly integrated. So the team that was responsible for this engine had been hard at work trying to fix bugs, but they really always felt like they were playing a game of whack-a-mole. And after several months of working on the problem, we hadn't really seen a market improvement. This was really frustrating for leadership as well, who was blocking a number of important public launches until the messaging problem was fixed. So what I did is I decided to sort of jump in and spend 50% of my time working on these core reliability issues in addition to new feature work. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was one that was important to the team. And after speaking with the engineering teams responsible for the messaging infrastructure and sort of really pulling back the curtain on the problem, it became clear that they actually knew the solution all along. The solution was just to rewrite the entire engine, which had been brought in as the result of an acquisition of another product. But because they'd been feeling pressure from leadership to sort of deliver on an aggressive timeline, this option hadn't been exercised. So one thing that I did is I helped create a plan around completely rewriting this messaging engine. I socialized that plan with leadership and ultimately got it approved and set up a plan for how we would deliver it. A quarter and a half later, we started to see market improvements in messaging reliability. And what I learned from all of this is oftentimes the solution is known. It's really about setting the team up for success. And making sure that the entire team is bought in on a plan of action.
Very cool. I liked Akshat's answer here for 3 reasons. One is he made the problem really simple. He didn't make it complicated. It wasn't, he didn't have to understand another product. It was just really basic. Second, he used words like, this was not a glamorous product. This is great because it shows that you have grit as a product manager, and sometimes unsexy things are very valuable. And the third thing was his solution was very bold. Doing a rewrite is a pain in the neck. No one loves doing it, but often it's the right thing to do, especially in light of a failure. So again, it's a good answer. Simplicity, grit, tough decision, went to executive management and got the problem solved. This is a good example of product leadership.
How do you resolve conflicting product requirements? What or who determines which requirement takes the hit?
That's a great question, and kind of a classic question, especially at large companies like Google, right? So the question is, how do you resolve conflicting product requirements? So let me give an example. I'll actually use an example from Facebook because I worked there as well too for a while. So the situation was this: I was working on a specific product, and I was really mostly concerned about the consumer experience and making sure there was a delightful consumer experience in a particular product requirement. There was another team that was focused on growth, and growth had a different objective where they were focused on really kind of growing the product, but they really weren't that focused on the experience of the product, and that was really kind of my domain. And we found that there was a product feature that basically conflicted. I wanted to go left. They wanted to go right. Left drove experience, right drove growth. It was very clear that it was a conflict. And so then the question is, what do you do? And so that was the situation. So the fundamental problem is this, right? The fundamental problem is you have a product, and depending upon how you build that product and how you define the requirements, one group does better, one group does worse. So it's really a trade-off problem. And the way to solve a trade-off problem is actually through escalation. And that's actually a positive word. It's a positive word at Facebook. It's a positive word at Google. And you really kind of escalate the solution and just say, hey, look, we've got a product feature. If we focus on experience, we lack growth. If we focus on this feature this way, we get growth, but we lack experience. What do we do? And so in this particular case, the product was early enough that the provocation, the solution, if you will, was that growth wasn't really yet a problem because experience wasn't really fully understood. So I think that was my big contribution to the problem as we went through this escalation, which was, growth is something that can happen, all throughout the journey of a product. But, nailing the experience and getting that right at first is really, really important. So in this case, we made a decision to focus on experience versus growth. By the way, this decision could have gone either way. Really happy with either decisions, but the reason we were able to reach that decision was by escalating, explaining the problem cogently, and then reaching a decision as a group at a higher level, which is what did the higher level wanted to do, and the higher level wanted to do, like, look, we really want to focus on a great experience first, and we've got lots of opportunity to grow this product over time. So the impact of that contribution was that we were able to, relatively quickly solve that product feature. We were able to launch the incremental feature out the door. We were able to then improve the user experience. And then we were then able to focus on other features that then helped drive growth. So at the end of the day, it helped drive a higher quality product, which then led to subsequent growth using other mechanisms. So what are the lessons out of this? Well, for me, the thing that I learned the most was that it's very, very important to understand that conflicts happen all the time, and conflicts are just a good reason to escalate. And an escalate is not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. And when you escalate and when you have a clear case, you'll make a decision, and everybody comes out of that meeting just feeling like really good, like a good decision was made. So that's how at least I solve conflicting product requirements.
Okay. What happens if you escalate your problem up a level and the problem still isn't solved?
Yeah, so that can happen too. This is kind of like the old metaphor of turtles all the way down. It's actually turtles all the way up, and that can happen, right? So you can have an issue, and you take it up a level, and maybe unleashes another level, right? You can take it up another level still, but at the end of the day, you can escalate all the way to the CEO, and at the end of the day, the CEO will make a decision. But the important thing is never be afraid to escalate things to get clarity on objective, and make the right decision.
Okay, great answer. Thanks, Mark. Mark's answer was very well structured thanks to his good use of the SIPSIL framework. As a PM, you're going to have conflicts all the time, so show the interviewer that you're comfortable with that and you have plenty of experience dealing with it. As Mark did, outline a simple process you use to come to a solution. Here, Mark recommends escalate, resolve, commit. This works really well. Having a process helps making decision-making more simple. You'll also want to show that you don't get dogmatic about things, that you're open to having your point of view challenged and can change your mind when the data suggests that you should.
What makes a good product manager?
I think from a behavioral standpoint, a product manager needs to understand his or her market, the user, and more importantly, the company and the context in which they're operating, right? A product manager is only as good as the team that they can sort of set up for success and enable. And in order to get buy-in from your cross-functional peers, in order to make them successful, you need to deeply understand, what their goals are, right? And what their constraints are. It's really important to empathize not just with your user, but also with the peers that you're working with, and make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction. And hand in hand with that, high EQ is really important. Strong communication and conflict resolution skills. I mean, even in the two anecdotes that we just went through, I think conflict resolution is so important because, a demotivated team, no matter how smart they are, won't really get much done. And oftentimes it falls to the PM to make sure that morale is high and that people are working well together.
So I loved this answer from Akshat because it really gets to the heart of being a good product manager at Google, specifically focusing on the user, the market, the company context from which you're operating in, right? He used words like empathize. He used words like having high EQ. He used words like communication. These are all kind of the critical skill sets of being a good product manager at Google.
Tell me about yourself.
So I've been a product manager now for going on just about a decade. My background originally started as an engineer. I studied computer science and economics, and this got me a very logical, analytical framework and mindset, but also gave me a lot of technical skills in terms of learning to build software and building software for several years. I initially started out working with government clients and government consulting, the most innovative space in the world, as you can imagine. After a couple of years of that, I decided I wanted to change. I went to MIT for my MBA and wanted to study business. And I was looking for a way to stay technical, stay within technology, and keep those skills, but utilize my newfound knowledge and interest in business and understanding. It was in grad school where I discovered product management. I interned at Zynga back in the heyday, worked on mobile poker, and helped launch the Android product there. And that's where I really love the combination of the strategy and product design and thinking and focus on the user, but was able to really rely and utilize my technical background to both relate with engineering, talk to engineering, and understand the actual effort and impact of the changes that we were going to be making on the product. In terms of this led me, while I was in grad school, I actually looked at several different industries and really was drawn to product management. The truth is, as an engineer, I always was more interested in the client and how they would use the product and what the impact of the product would be on their life. So much more interested about how the government was going to use my software as opposed to the best way to implement this. And that's why product management really has been a great match for me over the last couple of years. It takes that strategic thinking, the organizational theory, working with people, working across teams, merges that with the technical background so I can still understand, should we build something across all platforms? Should we build something on mobile first as opposed to web? Understanding the cost for the changes that we're going to make and bring it all together to really deliver high quality products to the user.
Of course, there are many ways to answer this question, but one good approach is to talk about why you want to be a product manager. If you have relevant skills such as engineering, data analytics, etc., bring them up here and try to show evidence of progression. Convey that you're on an upward journey. Also, do some background research on the interviewer. Try and connect with them on a personal level. For meta, try and demonstrate values such as entrepreneurship and scrappiness. Meta really love these. They also love people that come from high-end startups, so highlight that experience if you have it. But make sure to always be humble. Humility and a team player attitude is really important in most companies, but at Meta especially. How have you previously measured customer satisfaction?
That's a great question, Tom. Thank you. I would start with as when there was a time when I was a product manager in the Amazon Marketplace organization, and I was in the individual sellers team. The individual sellers business is essentially comparable to eBay on Amazon. So any other sellers or individuals can come in, sign up to sell on Amazon, and you don't have to be a professional or you don't have to be a big business. So you and I can just go into Amazon and sell whatever product that we have according to the approved product categories. In addition to that, Amazon individual sellers are in the retail industry or in the market, and it doesn't include the digital space. So like, for example, Kindle or digital courses. So it only includes the physical products that you can sell. With that, there was time that I have seen that Amazon customers are not buying again, specifically from those individual sellers. And it's not a problem of conversion. Our conversion, we're doing very good. I was in line with the industry about 5 to 6%. But it was more of a one-time deal. We've seen and we've understood that some of the individual sellers only have one product at a time, but overall, the retention and the retention of those customers coming again to purchase is very much declining at a more rapid pace. That said, after talking to multiple Amazon customers about their satisfaction, their retention, their browsing experience, their purchase experience, I then talked to Amazon individual sellers themselves. As you know, Amazon Marketplace is a two-sided platform. So understanding the pain points and the issues of both sides from customers and sellers would be very beneficial for any product managers to come in and diagnose the problem and recommend the solutions to solve it. That said, the biggest solution to address the problem was to improve Amazon product detail pages, specifically by adding more pictures. What is the product usage? For example, is it used or is it new? And then another example is within the used category. Is it used acceptable? Is it used great? Is it used good? Having a better description or product usage of that particular information, we believe will definitely help with attracting customers to purchase from Amazon individual sellers again. In addition to that, we've updated the description. So like, for example, how many times that if it's a used product, how many times have been used. And again, we've added a product category specific. For example, a lot of our products that is being sold from Amazon, from individual sellers, are books. How long have they gotten it? How long they have passed it around? So are you a third or fourth user? And if it is hardbound, is it still intact? because some of those specific product categories are very important to understand that what is the quality of this product, because we all know if it's a used product, most of the times the quality has declined. So having a better description of all of those will definitely help influence Amazon customers to purchase again. And lastly, as you know, from an Amazon product detail page, they have specific bullet points. I think before there was only 3. We've improved it to 5, and we've provided specific guidance, especially for individual sellers, on what to put in there. And again, we've catered into multi-product categories. For example, if it's an electronics, if you're selling a tablet, does it still have a charger? Does it still have a lot of accessories that it came with prior to it being a new product? So overall, we've focused on the content, because based from our conversations with Amazon customers, it will definitely help them to convince to purchase from these individual sellers. Does that help, Tom?
Yeah, it does. I just wanted to dig into that a bit. I'm interested to know why you focused on the product detail page content rather than the product price, given that Amazon customers are well known to be very price sensitive.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I think that's a great question. Yes, Amazon customers, they are price sensitive, and that's why there's everyday low price. In addition to that, based from what we've known, based from our customer research, at least 95% of the products that are being sold by individual sellers are used products. So that said, it would be great for me to focus on a solution that is more focused into that particular type of category. And at the same time, most used products have been marked down. As we know, as I've shared earlier, the quality have usually declined because if you use it again and again, compared to a new product. That said, most of the prices for these products, for used products, have been marked down by 60%. So I think that's a great way to, that's a great solution to focus on the price itself. How can we continue to improve it? But in terms of the most pressing problem, in terms of prioritization, I was convinced that focusing on the content on the product detail page will definitely help with the overall customer satisfaction, which leads to increased repeat purchases from the individual sellers. With that, what we've seen was very, very interesting and is very positive. The traffic, which is the impressions or glance views to product detail pages that were sold by Amazon individual sellers, increased by 20%. What we've seen was it has definitely influenced the internal search ranking algorithms, and at the same time, the external traffic algorithms as well. With more information, with more metadata in place, we were able to influence those crawler bots inside and external to Amazon, which resulted to increased traffic. In addition to that, because there are more images, there are more information, we've seen that Amazon customers that have purchased from individual sellers, they have come to look at, again, products from individual sellers. And overall, that has increased the repeat customer purchase by 10%. And we believe that increasing repeat customer purchase, if a customer comes back again and again, that is a heavy metric that customers are satisfied with the overall business or with the product. That said, we've learned a lot of things. As I've mentioned earlier, I was in the Amazon Marketplace organization. One of the learnings that I learned was understanding better a multi-sided platform. Identifying the players, especially the sellers and the customers on both sides, having a thorough user research will lead to a better information for us that would help us analyze what would be the best solution to move forward with. And with that, we were able to apply that learning and then have a positive impact to the overall product or business.
Okay, that's a really interesting answer. Thanks, Jason. Questions that ask to give an example from your past experience are known as behavioral questions, and we always recommend using the SIPSIL framework for these: situation, problem, solution, impact, and lessons. Amazon uses behavioral questions to test you on various leadership principles, in this case, customer obsession. How well can you listen to your customers? Talk about different methodologies, one-to-one, survey, focus groups. Show the interviewer you're obsessed with your customers, as Jason did here. You'll also want to demonstrate that you're a PM who knows your competition. After all, they're the ones who can take your customers away from you. Can you include an example of you getting their performance data or triangulating it to analyze your performance against the industry? In these types of questions, expect tough follow-up questions that will push you to delve into the details and the data. So be well prepared. Tell me about a time you failed at work.
Failure. One thing I think that's very important as a product manager is to have a healthy relationship with failure, and to not be, because it's going to happen. But if you let it crush you, then you can't be effective at your job. And also fostering an environment of the correct failures and being able to learn and move on from them. A failure that I very vividly remember, and this was a bit earlier in my career, I was working on a mobile game. And this mobile game was where you would breed creatures and you would put them into a habitat. It was free to play. We'd monetize by selling costumes and gold coins and things along those lines. One day, and I believe it was like a Tuesday or so, we came in and we realized that ARPU, the average revenue per user, had dropped about 20%. This was shocking. This was weird. This doesn't typically happen unless we made a change internally to the system. So, the problem here is fundamentally our users are now worth 25% less, and this is a huge issue, right? We weren't going to meet our goals and run to that. So in terms of the solution, the fundamental solution was to create a war team on this. So we said, all right, let's first take a very tactical approach. Let's look at the data, let's look at the information that we have, and see if we can find and understand the root cause. We looked at user engagement. It didn't change significantly. We looked if we had just dropped a bunch of users. That didn't change. We looked at competing games to see if there was another similar game that was stealing our users. We looked at our payment processing flows. And the thing is, nothing was showing any clear drop or any clear root cause. Simultaneously, after maybe the first day of not clearly being able to find the root cause, usually the root cause kind of bubbles up. We then started with a series of tests that we could do all right, let's test some things. Let's try increasing prices for some cohort, or let's remove the lower cost item for a cohort and see if that changes. Maybe there's something, we had specific quests, and some of these quests had payment gates tied to them and related. But the truth is, in that war team, and we spent almost 80% of our time for approximately 3 weeks focused on this because it was such a huge issue. The truth is, we failed to actually find the root cause of this problem. We could not see any direct change internally, anything externally that kind of caused the drop in ARPU. It's influenced by so many feeder metrics and functions in terms of what could change it, but we couldn't see any one thing that would cause such a drastic change in such a drastic time. But in terms of actually finding a solution, because we actively looked for fixes and ways to bring this up in a short time without hurting our overall metrics, we were able to recover everything except a 3% drop. So the changes that we were able to make, the A/B test, while looking to solve the root cause, but also looking to solve the problem, we were able to enact several changes that were able to bring us back to close our baseline within a reasonable amount of time. So we failed to solve the problem. We failed to understand what exactly happened. We failed to understand the root cause here. And it did weigh on the team. We had a pretty great track record of solving these problems and figuring them out. But we were happy that we were able to make some changes, that we didn't just focus on the problem, on understanding the problem, but we also focused on taking best guesses at the solution and moving forward with rapid A/B testing and trying out some new things to solve different problems to finally get there. So kind of one of the big takeaways here was it was one of the first times we really had to soak up that that a problem happened and we couldn't neatly, quickly answer it with data. So that was a very humbling experience that we took away from the team. But one of the bigger lessons is when there is a change, that as we're looking for the solution, we should, with the available resources, with the information that we have available, also try and simultaneously solve it in what may seem like in orthodox or tangential ways, because you may solve the core problem and you may find the root cause and just be able to solve that and answer it. But there may be a fundamental shift that means that you need to change your tactics. And by quickly looking and working on a solution in addition to trying to solve for the problem, you may find that the learnings you get from the new tactics are as important or more influential than just solving the root cause in the first place.
Okay, thanks, Damien. Great answer. For this question, you need to understand the role failure plays in your job. You can't never fail, so you want to be able to speak to how you deal with it and how you bring this to the team. Cater your story to the organization. Meta embraces failure publicly and openly, even celebrating it. Other companies may have a different view, and you want to try and match their ideals. Use a real failure with real impact. Don't be too fluffy and say, we worked too hard for a weekend, or something that isn't a real failure. Instead, use something more serious and take responsibility for your part. However, avoid making it appear to be an overtly bad misjudgment or poor decision from you. Finally, you really need to show how you learned and grew from the failure. Show the impact of your efforts and how you helped mitigate or reduce the failure. Hello, I really hope you found that useful. If you did, you can like and subscribe, and why not come visit us at IGotAnOffer.com. There you can find more videos, useful frameworks and question guides, all completely free. And you can also book expert feedback one-to-one with our coaches from Google, Meta, Amazon, etc. Thank you and good luck with your interview.